Here is the summary of day 16 of the Darrell Brooks trial. He was almost automatically placed in the adjacent courtroom because he could not keep his mouth shut, continued to interrupt the judge, and stall court. He was supposed to call his mother to the stand today. She did not show up, and he continued to ignore the judge's questions of if he wanted to testify, and so she ruled that he had forfeited this right, which caused him to, of course, have a hissy fit. He also did this. He built a fort out of boxes to hide him from view of the other courtroom, like a child. And additionally, today the judge told him he can only argue the facts in his closing statement, and he said, and I quote, "I'll tell them whatever the hell I want." Every day he just gets more and more violent and more disrespectful.
This is why smuggling drugs or getting involved in any type of illegal activity is not worth it at all, because it can cost the rest of your entire life. LMA Cully, she's a British teenager. She's 18 years old and she's from Billingham on Teesside. She was studying in the UK to become a nurse, traveling, and she went to the Philippines. She started posting on TikTok as any young person on vacation, on holiday would do. But then one day she stopped posting on her TikTok and on her social media, and she stopped replying to her family and friends. When her family were not able to get in contact with her, that's when they reported her missing. Neil, her dad, and her auntie then got on a plane and flew all the way to Bangkok to try and find her and figure out what has happened to her. They found out that Bella was not in Thailand, but she was 4,000 miles away in Georgia, where she was arrested on alleged substance smuggling. Luggage inspection found 12 kg of marijuana and 2 kg of hash found in her travel bag, and they are trying to investigate whether she was trying to hand these substances over to somebody else. These types of crimes, they do not take lightly. They take this very seriously in these types of countries. I am talking about life in prison seriousness. The prison she's been held in is known to be very horrific, with alleged sewage-filled cells and cells so cramped with more than 3 people being rammed inside them. In this same prison in 2006, 7 prisoners were killed and 17 were injured by the prison guards. However, saying this, Miss Cully's lawyer has spoken out and said that she was in good health, but he would not describe her as an adequate adult. But her lawyer does not speak English, and they have been communicating through a translator. There was a pre-trial hearing on the 13th of May where Miss Cully told the court that she was pregnant. Right now, she's still being detained, and apparently there's a lot more different groups of people who are actually involved in this whole operation. This is a quote from a spokesperson saying, "The arrest was a result of a joint operation between multiple departments, and if she was found guilty, Miss Cully could face up to 20 years in jail or life imprisonment." I can't find her TikTok anyway. It looks like it might have been removed, but I have found some screenshots of what people have reshared online. You can see she was posting some TikToks promoting crime and like wads of cash. So I generally don't know what's going to happen to her. It is quite a deep case. So let me know what you guys think on what's going to happen, if she's going to make it back to the UK, if she's going to get life imprisonment.
This has to be one of the most disturbing magazine articles that I've ever read in my life. Trigger warning, what I'm about to go over is incredibly graphic and disturbing. Brooke Shields is a very famous American actress, and she really rose to fame in the late 1960s and 70s. And that was because Hollywood producers gave her a number of high-profile roles in films where she was asked to go completely nude. And I'm talking fully nude with full glam on as a 10, 11-year-old. So this issue of High Times magazine was published in February of 1978. Brooke at the time would have been about 13 years old. And here's the article in question itself. I'm just going to read you some of these quotes. "The most perfect nymphette in creation has been found in America. Her name is Brooke Shields. She's a sultry mix of all-American virgin and innocent whore. She's the hottest new young thing in movies, destined to be the sex symbol of 1964. Here they talk about a role she played in a film and say she's a female child raised on a diet of cock money. And down there, Brooke is devastating as a little lady who fucks and sucks for bucks. Also, they print that quote really big here, and she's in a picture with a known pedophile, Woody Allen. They also said Brooke's looks have been her business all her young life, extraordinarily beautiful even as an infant. She's been playing the prepubescent vamp since she was 8. At that tender age, she dropped her Carters for a photographer and posed nude. Producers literally held their breaths, waiting for the remarkable Brooke Shields to reach a reasonable age of fuckability. Not yet legal, but oh so sweet. Welcome to the end of innocence, Brookie. So, if this isn't the most disturbing thing that you've ever read, something is definitely wrong with you. They're talking about a very young Brooke Shields here. Like I said, she was only 13 years old at the time. And in these films and in these photos that they're talking about in this article, she was only 11, 10 years old. I cannot believe that this was published in a nationally known magazine like the High Times, and that nobody got in trouble for this. In my opinion, we should retroactively go back in time and arrest these people for publishing things like this about her. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me. I mean, I can't even believe that this is real. Now, obviously, I know that there are going to be some people who comment on this video and say, oh, times used to be different. You know, child pornography technically wasn't a problem and wasn't made illegal, blah, blah, blah. And to people who say that, honestly, fuck off. Because there is no excuse for an article like this to ever have been not only written, but then published. I can't imagine what this had to have been like being Brooke Shields if she ever read this at that age. Thankfully, though, Brooke did get out of the system and managed to live a happy life. But she has done a number of interviews and talked about this before, saying how much stuff like this really messed her up. And not only does Hollywood owe Brooke Shields an apology, I personally feel that some of these people should be investigated to this day. Clearly, at minimum, the guy who wrote that article about Brooke.
What this girl and her friends saw would probably traumatize me for the rest of my life. So she's from Mexico, and the area that she lives is almost like in the middle of nowhere, but there has been a few people talk about this ghost lady. Around her town, there's a lot of mountains, and she says that there's this very specific curve that you need to pass through where people have experienced strange things. Truck drivers, taxi people, they claim that whenever they pass this curve, there's a lady in their car with them that they never let in. There's also been people having accidents in the area, and the people who end up surviving say the same story. I was passing by the curve, and then there was a lady next to me that I never let into the car, and it distracted me and I crashed. Now, she says that at her 23 years of age, she has passed by there in the morning, at nighttime, on the daily basis, and nothing had ever happened to her, or she had never seen anything weird in that curve. She's not trying to say that it's not real, because too many people have talked about it to the point where it became like an urban legend in her town, but she just has never experienced anything there. But of course, that all changed. So she says that she was in the car with her friend that was driving and 3 guys in the back seat. So they had just came from a party in the neighboring city, and they were gonna go through there because that was the only way to get to the city after where she lives. So they were gonna pass by the curve. They weren't gonna stop at her town, they just needed to pass by there. It was around 2 in the morning, and she explained that none of them had drank yet because they were gonna go to the other party, and that's when they were gonna start drinking. As they're driving, they get to the curve and they see something that caught their attention. They noticed something that was like really close to the curve but on the mountain, and right when they get next to it, she says that the guys in the backseat just start screaming, go, 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 drive faster, move, move. She hears one of the guys is like, hit the gas, go faster, it's coming, it's coming. She has no idea what's going on, and she turns to look at them like, are you guys crazy? Like, what are you doing? They completely ignore her, and she saw when the guy leans forward, touches her friend on the shoulder, the one that's driving, and tells her, if you don't go any faster, she's gonna get in the car. Go faster. She said that her friend got so scared that she did hit the gas, but they kind of lost a little bit of control and they almost crashed, but thankfully they did not. She gained control of the car and they kept driving past that place and did not stop whatsoever. Now, she didn't see anything beyond like that thing that was on the side because she was too focused on what the guys were screaming and all of that. However, she says that all 3 of the guys in the back seat say the exact same story. Once they got right next to whatever was on the side of the curve, that thing got on all 4s and started running towards the car. They said that they thought it was an animal that was like chasing the car, but when they were going, a car was actually coming and the headlights of that car showed them exactly what that was. They said that they saw a woman running on all 4s at an incredibly like high speed, and that if the friend had not hit the gas and gotten faster, she would have caught up to the car. They all said that the lady's skin looked really gray, that didn't look like a normal person's skin, and that they couldn't tell like the eyes, they were all just blacked out. They all explained that they had never never seen anything like it and that they never want to see it ever again. The girl said that ever since that day, that group of friends have never dared drive to that curve to go to her town to see her. Like, she never saw them at her house or in that town again. Well, bitch, you would not have seen me again either. What the fuck? But what do you guys think that was?
I used to work at this hotel in Schaumburg, Illinois. It was a Homewood Suites by Marriott. And I remember that I was, this nighttime maintenance guy. And basically my job was, if something broke at night, I would go and fix it for them. If they needed a light bulb changed, or if, their stovetop wasn't working, I'd go and take a look at it. And also I would help the front desk person. Well, there was this room 213. And for some reason, I would get a bad feeling about this room, and I didn't like to go near this room. And it's like I felt when I would walk by it outside like someone was watching me from the room. Now, in my downtime when I worked there, right, I would go to all the rooms and switch out the batteries and smoke detector, and sometimes change out the filters in the furnace. And this particular night, I got to room 213 to change out the batteries and smoke detector. So I'm in there, I'm standing up on the bed, changing out this battery, and all of a sudden I hear whoosh, like this whooshing sound. And it's coming from the bathroom. I go into the bathroom, and I realize this bathtub is running, and the water's turned on by itself. And so I'm thinking, like, is this thing broken or something? So I take a look at the faucet, and it's just, turned on. So I turn it off, and I go back to putting the battery in the smoke detector. And once again, it kicks back on, and like the bathtub's running again. So I hurry up, put the battery into the smoke detector. I go in the bathroom, I shut it off, and I got out of the room. Now, I didn't tell anybody else that worked at the hotel about my feelings towards room 213 or anything that had happened. One night, the front desk guy, Bogdan, tells me, like, you'll never believe what happened last night. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, this lady came down in nothing but a bathrobe and was like, I need a new room. There was a woman in my bathtub and like was freaking out and terrified. So I gave her a new room. And I'm like, was it room 213? And he's like, yeah, how did you know that? And I'm like, I get a bad feeling about that room. So fast forward a few months after this, I'm working one night. Bogdan calls me up. Hey, can you take these two guests? They want to see one of the rooms before they check it out or rent the room out. So I'm like, okay, So I go down, and Bogdan says, take them to 213. It's vacant. So I take him up to room 213, and I, as always, knock on the door, say, hello, it's maintenance. And someone responds back, I'm in here. And it's a woman's voice. I hear this. The man and woman with me hear this. But I'm like, there's not supposed to be anyone in this room. So I call down to Bogdan, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I thought this room's supposed to be vacant. And he goes, yeah, there should be no one in that room. Like, you need to go in there and check it out. So I enter the room. I'm like, maintenance, hello, anyone in here? No one responds. I go in the room. It's completely dark. There's no one in the room at all. And I even checked the maintenance closet. You have to understand, this is a second floor room, and the windows do not open. So there was absolutely no one in that room. The next morning, I'm talking to the assistant general manager, and I'm like, hey, is there something wrong with room 213? And I tell them what had happened to me. And he's like, shh, quiet. He's like, come with me into my office. So I go into his office, and like he shuts the door really fast. And he's like, well, there was a girl who one night checked in to 213. She ordered a bunch of this sad music, and the next morning she didn't check out. So we sit in the morning, maintenance guy Gary, to the room, and he finds her in the bathtub. And, he was just like, completely messed up by this. He had to take several weeks off of work. I didn't know what to do with the room, so I just opened up the windows and we aired it out, and we didn't rent it, check it out to anyone for several months. The housekeeping, they were all like strong Catholic, and they would not go into that room until I had a priest come and bless the room. And he's like, I still don't like to check that room out, only when, we're at full capacity. And he's like, I didn't want to tell the staff, and I don't like to tell anybody staying here because I don't want to scare anyone. And it was just kind of like, whoa, like I had been in that room several times, and like, I had no idea like this had happened. And it sort of all made sense to me, like why I didn't like that room.
Let's talk about the scariest thing anyone has ever told me. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and today I'm going to be going over the scariest thing anybody's ever told me, because the scariest thing anyone has ever told me happened 2 days ago, and it was my boyfriend who told me. And just to clarify, this is the same boyfriend that was the voice of the mimic I heard. This is the same boyfriend that was taunting the haunted doll. This is the same boyfriend who would go to the haunted cemetery. He's the same one. And what's crazy is I didn't even think it could get worse. I really couldn't. But we were laying in bed watching a YouTube video about this creator who went to Japan, and he had paranormal experiences in Japan without even trying. And my boyfriend paused it and he was like, hey, I never told you about this, and it's not going to scare you, but it is really weird. Spoiler, it did scare me really, really bad. I couldn't sleep. And I've been having a hard time sleeping, period, since he told me, because I think about it all the time. But before I get into like what he told me 2 days ago, y'all have to hear about the story he told me when we first met, because we were talking about like our first paranormal experiences. I don't know how we got on that topic, but we did. But his first experience went like this. Okay, he's in his parents' room by himself, trying to sleep in his parents' bed. I don't know why, but he's having a hard time sleeping, obviously, because it's a new environment. It's dark, it's quiet, nobody is there with him in this big room. But the way that their bedroom is set up is they have like the actual bedroom area, and then they have this walk-in bathroom, and their closet is in the bathroom that is also a walk-in. And at night, you can look into the vanity that they have in their bedroom and see directly into the bathroom and see the closet door. And that's exactly what my boyfriend was doing. He was so scared of this bathroom that he like turned over and was looking into the mirror, watching and seeing if anything was going to happen, or like if a door was closing. I don't know why he was doing this either, but he was really scared and he was trying to fall asleep. And right as he was falling asleep, like covers over the face, eyes just peeking out, the whole 9 yards. Right as he's falling asleep, he feels the bed pushed down behind him, like someone was getting into bed with him. Ew. And he ran out, we ran downstairs, and his parents were like, what happened? And he's like, nothing, I just want to be down here with you guys. And I'm pretty sure he slept down there until his parents like took him to his own room that night. Anyways, fast forward to 2 days ago. We're sitting here, we're watching the video, he's like, I have something scary to tell you. Proceeds to tell me that currently, right before he falls asleep sometimes, he feels this man grab his arm, and he hears this man's voice say, wake up. And my first reaction was like, sir, what do you mean? What do you mean there's a man grabbing your arm or your leg when you're laying on your stomach right before you're about to fall asleep? I've never heard of anything happening like that. And I immediately thought about that story that he told me. And I was like, how often does it happen? Like, what's going on? And he was like, it happens like a lot. And he says it's almost like he can feel when it's going to happen. Like he can sense when the hand is about to grab him. And he says he never feels like fingers wrap, like it's not like a gentle, it's just very violent, and it's one grab and then it lets go. He says it never happens at my house. It never happens anywhere else except his room. And when he's very distinctly sleeping on the side of the bed that is not against the wall. And I don't know, I just like I don't like that whatever it is, or if it is anything, it knows that it can reach up and grab him when he's sleeping on the edge of the bed. Because the other side of the bed is up against a wall. My boyfriend also says that it feels like something's coming up from under the bed. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories. Let's talk about my crazy intuition. I've been very reluctant to make a video about this for a while. My friends call it my witchy intuition. And anyone who's not familiar with deeper intuition, or scary intuition as I like to call it, are going to think I'm absolutely insane. And I don't know how else to describe it or tell you to believe in it, other than you have to meet someone who has weird intuition like this. And the amount of things I've been able to guess correctly in the past year and a half has been absolutely mind-boggling. And I know I'm going to get a lot of comments that say like, you're just a good guesser. And a majority of the instances of my intuition, outside of the ones that I'm about to tell you, happen inside of the dreams I have. I lucid dream. I cannot tell you how I do it. I've always been a lucid dreamer. And what's weird is I have full control over myself, my body, and the consciousness I have in my dream. I'm able to wake myself up when I need to, but I'm not able to control like the environment, other people, or the prompt of my dream. With that being said, outside of those instances, which is a majority of them, like I said, I have this witchy tingle. I seriously don't know how to describe it, but I started really noticing it within the last year. This all started like a year ago when I went to the casino with my friends for my best friend's birthday. I'd never been to a casino and I had never gambled in my life. And I'd like to point out that my friends think that this is some like weird superpower that I have because of how accurate it is. And I'm talking about accuracy like 10 out of 10 times. I've guessed correctly every single time. But my boyfriend is walking me through the casino and showing me around like the tables, the slot machines, the automatic games, the live games, etc. And that is when we passed this very specific slot machine. And I just knew it was going to hit for a lot of money. And I turned to my boyfriend and I said, this machine is going to hit for a lot of money. He kind of looks at me like, okay, puts $20 in. It was like $3 a spin. On his third spin, the machine hits for $1,100. My boyfriend turns to me, gives me $20 and says, go pick out another machine that's gonna hit. And reminder, I've never been in a casino in my life, and I was just wandering around by myself until I felt the same feeling I had with the other machine. And this time it is a penny slot, and if you don't know what that is, it's literally 1 cent per spin per line. And I kid you not, the same thing. I put the 20 in, probably my 5th spin in, I hit for like $400 and I bring it back to him. So now I have just won $1,500 in the span of like an hour at the casino, just from sheer intuition. And yes, that can be chalked up as beginner's luck or whatever. And this obviously wasn't the last time I went to the casino. The second or third time I went, mind you, I said I had 100% success rate. I hadn't gambled $1 at this point. And my friend is sitting at the roulette table. I hadn't seen him all night and he has $5 left. And he looks at me, he says, what should I put it on? And if you're not familiar with roulette, I'm going to try to make this sound not complicated. It is this huge circular board with numbers on it that are in black, red, and green font. The green numbers have a higher payout because there are less of them, and the black and red have like the same payout. And usually people don't bet on very specific numbers because the odds of that happening are slim to none. I tell my friend, put your last $5 on red 5. And he kind of gave me this weird look and he's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. And you know where this is going. It hits 5 red. And again, he gives me this look and he's like, how did you know that was going to happen? I said, I don't know. And it gets even weirder than that. A separate time, my boyfriend and I were heading home from a date when I suddenly am like, we should totally go to this casino, play this very specific machine because it's going to hit. So we drove 35 minutes to this casino to put $20 in. First spin, it hits for like $500. He pulls it, we leave. The most recent time that we went to the casino, I was standing in front of this slot machine, this penny slot, and it was the same feeling I felt, but we were looking for our friends and I didn't have time to either put money in or have someone else put money in. And on our way back, after we found our friends, we passed the slot machine and a woman had sat down and hit the grand jackpot on like her second or third spin. And that was the only time I did not vocalize that to other people, and I just kind of internalized that. And obviously it's not just lighthearted things. I wouldn't have included that a majority of these intuitions happen in my dreams if it didn't happen in other circumstances. I also don't want to get it misconstrued that I only am able to feel good things that are going to happen, like a slot machine hitting. I can also feel when things are not right or something is going to happen or when something is there. Because a lot of weird stuff has been happening and I don't want to add scary stuff into this very lighthearted video. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.
Spooky story time while I do my makeup. I've had quite a few people ask me how I do my makeup, so I thought today's the day. And I will be posting the products somewhere on the screen. A follower sent me this story and we're going to call it The Woman Upstairs. She didn't send me her name, but I will be tagging her in the description. And for the sake of the story, we'll call her Jen. Jen says that one night she decided to stay the night at her cousin's house. Her aunt was going out and they decided to go to the little convenience store to grab slushies and to grab some snacks because they were going to have a movie night. On their way back home, they end up stopping at the local park and they were just doing what teenagers do, taking selfies, swinging on the swings, and then they decide to go to the area that has the bridge. So they are sitting there on the bridge, living their best life, goofing around, taking some more selfies, and then they hear like a woman's groan coming from underneath them. They kind of peek underneath the bridge to see like, hey, is there someone down there? Is there someone that needs help? And there's literally no one there. And Jen says that there wasn't even like a walkway for someone to even walk under there. There was just water. So they were like, if there is someone down there, how? They kind of look at each other and they're like, all right, let's go home. This is freaky enough.
So they get back to the house, they go to their room, they watch their movies, they eat their snacks, and they are again just chilling. They hear a noise coming from upstairs and they thought it was the cat, so they kind of just let it go and they just continue to watch movies. But then they hear footsteps. Again, they look at each other a little bit confused because they know for a fact that no one else is there with them. So they're kind of like, okay, there's no one else that's here. What is going on? And in that moment, they hear a woman laughing, but it's so weird because it sounds like she's crying at the same time. Then they hear stuff getting tossed around the room upstairs. Now they're really panicking because they're like, okay, there's someone that's physically here. Like at this point, they still weren't thinking, oh, what if it's a ghost? So they both call Jen's aunt and they're like, hey, are you by any chance home? And she's like, no, what's going on? So they tell her everything that's going on, the weird noises that they've been hearing, the laughing / crying, the stuff getting tossed around. And then the aunt is like, okay, let me call my best friend. She lives a lot closer than where I am right now because I'm a little further out. Let me call her and she's gonna go check up on you guys. Cool. They try to like calm down because they're like, okay, we're locked in the room, like we'll be fine. Friend's gonna come here soon, like let's just relax. Then they hear this woman coming down the stairs. And they're literally hearing the exact same thing. They are hearing her crying / laughing. And it sounds maniacal, like insane. And they can hear her coming down the hallway because as she's walking down the hallway, she's tossing stuff around, like just throwing shit everywhere. They hear her go into her little cousin's bedroom and she's literally like tossing stuff everywhere. And I don't know about y'all, but at this point I would have freaked the hell out, and that's exactly what happened. They were freaking out. She's moaning, she's groaning, she's making all these noises, and they know that whatever this is coming to their room next. So their panic is at a 10 right now, freaking out, and they decide, fuck this, we are gonna climb out through the window. At the same time that they manage to get out of the window, out of the house, the aunt's friend starts to pull up and they literally run to her and they start explaining everything that happened. So the aunt's friend is like, okay, let's go inside. Let me go check, like make sure it's not an intruder. She goes inside. Everything's silent, quiet, not a peep. There's no one inside that house. Like literally as soon as she gets there, everything goes back to normal. There's no mess. Even though you could clearly hear whatever was happening, whatever was going on in that house, you can clearly hear that there was stuff being thrown around everywhere. But yet when the aunt gets there, everything is pristine. Nothing was touched. Jen says that she doesn't know if it was a skinwalker, if it was a spirit, like she literally has no idea what it was, or was it something else? What do you guys think? Thank you so much to the follower for sending me the story. I will be tagging her below in the description. I will also be writing down all the products that I used. If you guys have any questions, just send me a DM. And if you guys have any spooky stories that you'd like for me to read, go ahead and send them via DM or email, and I love to read them. And I will see you guys in the next spooky story. Bye!
Do y'all want to hear a creepy ass crime case before I go to bed? Listen close. As usual, if you have anxiety, don't watch the video. Okay, so we're in the year 2006. Kathy Augustine is a politician in Nevada, the state's first female controller. But as quickly as her career is headed to the stars, it quickly starts going downhill. When in 2004, her political enemies accused her of violating election laws. Her case then went before the state legislature. The trial did not go in her favor, and she was impeached. Kathy has been lied on and betrayed, and she's eager to clear her name of the lies that have been put upon her. And she was going to clear her name, one way or another. 2 years later, after Kathy's impeachment, she ran again for state treasurer. But here's where things get funky. In the middle of her campaign, she fell ill. July 8th, 2006. Kathy Augustine's husband, Chaz Higgs, finds his wife, Kathy, unresponsive in their bedroom. An ambulance is immediately called by Chaz. Kathy is barely alive and rushed to the hospital. At first glance, doctors suspect a heart attack, but then they perform an angiogram. This is a type of x-ray to see if her heart had any blockages consisting with a heart attack. They found none. Doctors are trying every effort they can to keep Kathy alive, but her condition just keeps spiraling downhill. It's getting worse and worse, and they can do nothing to stop it. They're confused as to what has caused this. According to all of the friends and family of Kathy Augustine, who had seen her a few days prior, they said she was her normal, happy, bubbly self. with a big smile on her face. Kathy Augustine's brother actually said that a couple days before her sudden collapse, she was so happy and content with where her life was at the moment. For the next few days, Kathy is in critical condition. Then on July 11th, 2006, Kathy's family made the difficult decision to take her off life support, which this is supposedly what Kathy would have wanted. In her will, she stated that if anything bad had happened to her, and God forbid, if it was God's time to take her, then she didn't want to interrupt that. She wanted to go if it was her time. But I'm sure she didn't expect to drop dead out of nowhere. After Kathy's death, Kathy's husband, Chaz Higgs, comes forward with some important information. He says that in the early morning hours of July 8th, 2006, he got up while Kathy laid in bed and he did some chores around the house. When he was finished with these chores, he went back to the bedroom where she was lying in bed and he noticed that she wasn't breathing. Him being a nurse, he immediately started CPR. Yes, he's a nurse. Medical examiners couldn't say a cause of death. They literally could not tell you how she died because she had no reason to. Next, they check her brain. Could she have died of an aneurysm? No, she did not. What happened to this beautiful, happily married woman? Not everything is as it seems. Listen to this. 3 days later, after Kathy Augustine has passed away, paramedics are called to her home once again. But why? When paramedics get there, they find Kathy's husband in a pool of blood. His wrists have been slit. He has attempted suicide. Paramedics roll Chaz Higgs away on a stretcher to the hospital, and he survives his injuries. He had left behind a suicide note, saying he could no longer live without his wife, and that he blames Kathy's political enemies for her death. What was strange was that in the suicide letter, he blamed her political enemies for her death, kind of hinting towards a murder. But no one spoke of a murder. She didn't have a cause of death. No one thought that one of her fellow politicians had took her life. A murder wasn't even on the table. Why would he mention it? This shit just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Go to part 2. This is part 2 about Kathy Augustine. Kathy Augustine's husband, Chaz Higgs, has just attempted suicide after her unexplained death. He writes in a suicide note that he left behind that he blamed her political enemies for her death. Like I said in part 1, a murder wasn't on the table, but that's what he's hinting towards. Doctors at first thought she had a heart attack. Why is he speaking of a murder? The next day, after Chaz's attempted suicide, was Kathy Augustine's funeral. So many people saddened by the loss of her. But the biggest thing reigning over this funeral was questions. Why has she died? Still no one knew. Kathy and Chaz had only been married 3 years, this being Kathy's 4th marriage. Her previous husband, the one right before Chaz, Charles Augustine. If you're confused by the names, she was married to Chaz Higgs most recently, so you would think that her last name would be Higgs, but she kept her previous husband's last name, Augustine. I do not know why. Irrelevant to the case. Her previous husband, Charles, had suffered a stroke and ended up in the hospital. Charles Augustine had a few nurses caring for him, one of them being Chaz Higgs. This is where the story's about to have you asking so many questions. So we've went a little bit in the past, 3 years earlier. Kathy is married to Charles Augustine. She goes up there frequently to visit her husband who is in a coma. The nurse that is taking care of him is Chaz Higgs. This is how Kathy and Chaz met. Charles actually ends up dying in the hospital. 3 weeks later, Kathy marries Chaz Higgs. Kathy's family members, as you can guess, are taken aback by this. They didn't jump down her throat about it. Of course, they wished her well, but they were definitely surprised that within 3 weeks she was married to somebody else. Because of this, investigators started to wonder, was Charles Augustine's death a result of foul play? But their main focus right now is the most recent death, Kathy Augustine. Now, as the investigation furthers, a medical examiner comes forward and says that she saw something suspicious during Kathy's autopsy. There were 2 bruises on Kathy's left butt cheek, and also 1 puncture wound, if not 2, on her butt as well. Tom Barb, the chief deputy district attorney, said that Chaz told news reporters that him and Kathy's 3-year marriage was a happy one, but people who worked with Chaz in the hospital said otherwise. Apparently, Chaz would say some pretty nasty things about his wife. One day, one of Chaz's co-workers said to him, "Hey, do you need any help?" And he said, "Yeah, get rid of my wife." Investigators looked through Chaz's computer and find that he was having an affair with a mystery woman. He was telling this woman things like, "Kathy made my life a living hell, she's controlling." From the emails and messages, it sounds like he hates this woman. He hates Kathy. And during the 911 call, he seemed very calm. I'm gonna play it here for you.
Something's wrong with my wife. She's not breathing. I don't know what happened to her. It's not trauma or anything. Said she's been really stressed, over the last 6 months or so. Hey, I'm going to do some more CPR, okay? Yeah, go right ahead.
You just found your wife without a pulse. She's dead. I don't have much to say about this other than you don't sound too concerned. Oh, she's been stressed, She's dead. Like, what are you talking about? One of the paramedics that was in the back of the ambulance when Kathy was being rushed to the hospital recalled Chaz sitting in the back of the ambulance reading the newspaper while his dead wife was on a gurney. If you're confused as to why I'm saying she's dead when she lasted 3 days alive in the hospital, is because when they arrived, she was dead on the scene. They revived her. She hadn't been dead long. She was on life support. Her body wasn't working on its own. She was dead. A friend of Kathy's then comes forward and says the night before Kathy was found dead, she told her on the phone that her and Chaz's relationship was over. Everything's coming out now. A co-worker comes forward after this to investigators and says that in the same week that Kathy was found dead, Chaz went up to a random co-worker of his and said, hey, if you really want to kill somebody, give them a shot of succinylcholine. Succinylcholine is a drug used to paralyze people. It's a paralytic drug. He also told this co-worker that they can't trace it. When someone gets a shot of succinylcholine, the body gets rid of it within about a minute and a half. It's definitely a drug that Chaz would have access to being he was a nurse. People are starting to suspect that Chaz has something to do with his wife's death. Investigators go to the hospital that Kathy was administered to. They actually froze some of her urine when she first got there. Succinylcholine leaves the body really fastly, but it survives longer in urine. At this exact time in 2006, there were only 2 labs in all of the United States that would test for succinylcholine. One of these labs was in Virginia. They, of course, sent her urine for testing. And what do you know? Kathy Augustine's urine had traces of succinylcholine. She had been poisoned. Chaz is immediately arrested, and they end up digging up Kathy's ex-husband, Charles Augustine, and he actually had small trace amounts of succinylcholine as well. He poisoned Charles, took his wife, and then poisoned her too. Ain't that about a bitch? Oh.
So Brenda Soto sent me a story, and I believe it's about the movie Candyman, but I'm not too sure, so I'm gonna read you what she sent me. I was maybe 12 years old when my older siblings decided to watch the movie Candyman. My dad went to go pick up my mom from LA, and he took my baby sister with him. We love horror at my house. We have had many supernatural experiences, so this movie was just another day for us. Well, for my siblings, because I would still get scared. They didn't let me stay in the living room with them, so I pretended to leave, but I stayed in the kitchen, and I can see our TV from there. I screamed at one point, so they let me sit in the living room with them. After the movie, my older sister had an idea. She said, let's say it in the mirror. My brother said that's dumb if you guys think it's real. I was scared, but I wanted to be a part of the cool kids, and I went along with them. My oldest sister says, let's go to my room. She had a mirror headboard. She wanted to do it in her own bedroom. We go to her room and she begins. Candyman. She said it 3 times. Nothing happened. We looked at each other and we were all relieved. My brother was like, told you it's not real. We turned off the lights and started to leave her room. As soon as the last person was out, we heard a noise and we froze because the noise came from her bedroom. We turned on the lights and started to look all over her room and we couldn't find anything. I look at the mirror and I just point at it because I'm speechless. The mirror had a crack from one end to the other, one big crack going across. My brother tried saying it was a screw, but when he said that, the lights flickered and we all booked it to the living room. My older sister had the courage to go back and she calls us back and shows us the handprint that was on her mirror. The next day she got rid of the headboard. Yeah, I probably wouldn't even go back and sleep in that bedroom if that was me. What the heck?
This mum was brutally murdered by the last person anyone would expect. It was January 2010 in Conyers in Georgia. Nikki Whitehead was 34 years old, living in the area, and she had twin daughters, Jasmine and Tasmaya Whitehead. Now, the twins mostly actually lived with their grandmother, Della. This was because their mum, Nikki, had given birth to the twins aged just 17. She really struggled to look after 2 kids, being just a kid herself. And grandmother Della stated that due to Nikki's age when she had the kids, she would kind of flit in and out of their lives. She wanted to be a mum to them, but she also struggled with kind of wanting to be a normal teenager too. This changed though when the girls were 13. Nikki felt like she was finally able to be a proper mum to these girls, so she applied for custody of them in 2007. The twins weren't 100% happy with this though. They felt that they were settled with their nan and they didn't want this upheaval. And this really caused conflict between all of them because Nikki was granted custody. Girls were very unsettled and really misbehaved when they moved in with their mum. Nikki was trying to teach them right and wrong, but the girls felt like she was being a hypocrite. As the years went on, Nikki would scold them over things like smoking substances, but they argued back and said, well, we've seen you do this, so you kind of taught us to do this. Things would escalate between them all and sometimes even turn into physical fights. The girls ended up having to attend juvenile court due to their bad behavior multiple times. They were very aggressive with their mum. So it probably goes without saying that the girls were temporarily handed back over to their nan, but the story does not end there. Nikki again fought for custody of the girls and was granted this for the second time in January 2010, when the girls were 16. But less than 10 days after being handed back over to their mother, a horrifying discovery was made. On the 13th of January, the girls returned home from school to find their mum dead. Now, they immediately flagged down police, who just so happened to be driving by at the time, to explain that they'd found their mum deceased in the bathtub at their home. And the officer at the scene found an absolute bloodbath. He even remarked that as he stepped into the home, he could smell the stench of blood. It was that bad. Nikki was absolutely covered in wounds. She'd been attacked with a vase. She had hideous injuries all over her body. She was actually described as completely unrecognizable. And the crime was very obviously a crime of passion. There was really no indication of a motive for a stranger to commit this murder. There was no forced entry. There was nothing missing from the home indicating a robbery, and there was no sign of SA. Investigators deemed that it was very unlikely that a stranger had done this to Nikki. Now, she did actually have a boyfriend at the time, and as with most murder investigations, he was pretty much the prime suspect. Officers knew that with such a chaotic crime scene, DNA could be really key here. Now, they initially questioned the two young girls and noted that they had scratches and bruises on them. But these were two rebellious teenagers who were often getting into physical fights, so it could have been the case that this had happened at school. Police treated them as victims who had clearly witnessed something horrific. But when officers scoured the crime scene, there was a really disturbing find. It was a journal, the twins' journal, and inside was incredibly damning evidence. There were paragraphs they'd written about how they needed to get rid of their mother, and one quote was, "She gotta go ASAP." They were also able to look through police records and find numerous occasions where Nikki, the mum, had rang police fearing for her life about how aggressive these twins were being towards her. When the twins were faced with the evidence against them, they eventually confessed to the brutal killing. And the details were absolutely chilling. They spoke of how an argument had broken out between them and their mum before school that day about them getting up late, and how Nikki had accused them of skipping school and being S-active. Now, the twins claimed that Nikki had threatened them, but there was no proof of this. And what unfolded next was just about the most brutal death imaginable. Jasmine admitted to hitting her mum over the head with a vase, while Tasmaya grabbed a pot and smacked her with it. Tasmaya then grabbed a knife and brutally stabbed Nikki as her twin sister strangled her with a ribbon. Tasmaya then took the knife and also stabbed her repeatedly. The twins had then carried their injured mum to the bathtub, which was filled with water. They literally watched her bleed out and eventually sink under the water. They seemingly made some kind of small effort to conceal some of the things from the crime scene before casually heading to school. Now, despite their age, they were sentenced to 30 years in prison each for the hideous crime, and they were placed in separate prisons. It's unlikely that they will see each other until 2044.
However, coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up," might have known the story of real-life boogeyman Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair, no one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
I've heard so many stories, honestly, specifically on TikTok, of girls having weird experiences at Target, which makes me really sad because I have a really strong and strange addiction to Target. But just girls having weird experiences with men or women coming up to them, trying to lure them outside and just do weird things. Well, not to scare you some more, but today I'm going to be telling you the story about Kelsey Smith, an 18-year-old girl. This happened in Kansas. She was abducted from a Target parking lot and killed. Real quick, on a different note, I've heard of standing jeans. I've never heard of a standing shirt. This is suffocating my armpits, so if you see me doing a weird pose such as this, just mind your own business. So again, Kelsey is 18 years old. She lives in a town called Overland Park in Kansas. She lives with her mom, dad, 2 older sisters, 1 younger sister, and 1 younger brother. Kelsey seems like such a fun girl. It sounds like she would just be friends with everyone. She was very outgoing, very kind, very fun, but at the same time, very responsible. Her family always knew where she was going, who she was with. She was also musically talented as well as an athlete. In 2007, she graduated high school and decided to go to Kansas State for the marching band, and she also started studying medicine. Wait, I feel like I'm making you uncomfortable by the way I'm sitting. I promise I'm fine. I'll try to be less weird. So she had a boyfriend named John. They met in 2007. She had a part-time job at AMC Theaters, so they would work together all the time. June 2nd was hers and John's 6-month anniversary, so they had a date planned at 7:30. It was around 6:30. She realized that she didn't have a gift for him. John was planning to give her a promise ring, so she decided to go to Target to see if she could find anything to give him as a gift. At 6:55, Kelsey goes to Target. She tells her dad she's gonna go to Target. She'll be right back. When she's in the store, she calls her mom, chats to her, tells her that she's buying a gift for John. She checks out, walks out. It's closer to 7:30 now. One of these sisters calls Kelsey's mom, asks her if she's spoken to Kelsey. The mom says, yes, I have, but she's probably with John now, so give him a call because they have a date at 7:30. So the sister does. John says that he is at the date, but that Kelsey has not gotten there yet. The dad is in law enforcement. The whole family's thought process is, we would rather be safe than sorry. So they call the cops to let them know they can't find Kelsey. And again, Kelsey is so responsible. She told her dad she was going to Target, which was only 8 minutes away. She called her mom when she was in Target, told her that she was walking out. She's now supposed to be at a date with John, but she's nowhere to be found. So they loop in the police. Their initial thought at first is that she probably got in a car accident. They start calling around different police stations as well as hospitals to see if anyone knows anything. Around 8 p.m. now, the sister and the dad decide to drive over to Target to see if Kelsey's car was still there. And you know, mall areas, there's like parking lots at every different entrances. So Kelsey's grandparents are also driving around to see if they can see her car. They find her car in the Macy's parking lot, which is in the same area, but around 0.5 miles away from where the Target is. It's now 9:45, 10 p.m. The family calls the police, lets them know that they found the car, and they don't touch anything because they know, again, the dad is in law enforcement. So they know if anything bad happened, there may be fingerprints in the car, so they just leave it alone until the cops get there. The cops get there and they start looking through the car, taking fingerprints as well. They notice that her purse is there, but her phone is gone. The Target bag is also in there, so it's showing that she made it back to the car, but one, she wouldn't go anywhere without her purse. Two, she wouldn't go anywhere without her car, and she's supposed to be at a date with her boyfriend that she was excited for, so obviously something is wrong. The cops take the fingerprints in the parking lot, but they end up deciding to just take the car to a crime lab overnight just to do further testing. The cops then tell the family, you know, there's nothing else we can do. You guys can go home. We'll let you know what we find tomorrow. The mom is like, absolutely not. Let's go down to the station. They're going to want to question us anyway, so let's just get that out of the way. She wanted to move quickly because every second that Kelsey isn't there is every second that something worse can happen. So she was on it. Meanwhile, the cops are working on getting the security camera footage from Target. They do, and you can see Kelsey walking in around 6:55. You can see her walking around the store on the phone with her mom, checking out, and then she walks out towards her car. They rewatch the footage and they see that when Kelsey pulled in, a truck pulled in behind her. When she got out of her car, a man got out of the truck, followed her into the store, and was following her all around the store, far enough to where Kelsey wouldn't see him and be suspicious, but close enough that it was evident that he was following her. Kelsey walks out and the man walks out behind her shortly after. In very, very blurry footage, you can see Kelsey's walking towards her car. The man comes up to her and it looks like she was pushed into her car, and then you see the car drive away 16 seconds later. Now, obviously, as he should be, the man is now a person of interest. The police decide to push out that security footage onto the public through news stations to see if anyone recognizes either one, the truck, or two, the man in the footage. A woman calls the tip line and says that she had a very similar thing happen to her when she was walking out of a store. Someone came up to her and tried to fight her and push her in her car. She fought back and actually ended up breaking her hand in the process, but she said that the man that did that to her looked a lot like the man in the video. Another tip gets called in of a restaurant. They said that the man in the video was actually at the restaurant earlier that night. He was being very disrespectful, asked to leave, and then just walked out. So dine and dashed. Another tip came in of a man that said he was joking around with his wife at first, that their neighbor looked like the man in the video, but then they saw the truck and they're like, oh, that is him. Another man called in, said that he was watching the news at work in his office and he looked over to his coworker and said, isn't that your truck? And then shortly after, his coworker said he felt really sick and needed to go home. This man, the neighbor and the coworker, was 26-year-old Edwin Hall. Police show up to Edwin's house, and conveniently, when they show up, Edwin, his wife, and their son are packing up the car, seemingly going on a trip. The police are like, no, you're not. Come on, let's go to the station. Let's question you. He's at the station being questioned. He actually has a lawyer with him. And immediately he's like, I don't know who Kelsey is. I didn't do this. It wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about. And then he's like, actually, I did see Kelsey at the Target and I noticed that she had very, very nice legs. But when I saw her face, she looked like she was 12. So I didn't talk to her. During this as well, Kelsey's cell phone provider was Verizon, so they bring someone from Verizon to help figure out what cell tower she was connected to, so they can see when your phone is connected to the same, like it can be connected up to 3 towers at a time. They find out those 3 towers and they draw sort of like a triangle of where Kelsey could be, so they go out searching in that area, and 45 minutes later, her body is found. The body was found with a lot of sticks trying to cover it up. It was 20 minutes away from the Target near Longview Lake in Grandview, Missouri. They don't have set proof yet that Edwin did this, so they hold him at the station on the dine and dash charges because he left that restaurant without paying, and his response to that was, oh, that's all you have? I'll be out in an hour. Until they get the fingerprint results, and it turns out there was a match of Edwin's fingerprints to one that was found inside of Kelsey's car that was on the metal clip of the driver's seatbelt. He's then officially charged for the murder of Kelsey Smith, and the town is disgusted. To give you an idea, it was pretty safe. There had only been 2 murders in the county at the time, Kelsey being one of the 2. So this should have just never happened, and the fact that it did was mortifying. Later in the investigation, it is also confirmed that Edwin's DNA was found on the steering wheel and on the actual seatbelt of the car. Obviously, we know from the footage that Edwin was following her into the Target and all around, and while Kelsey was checking out, Edwin must have walked outside, grabbed a airsoft from his car, and it's believed that he used that to scare Kelsey when she walked out and was walking towards her car. He pointed it at her and used that to scare her into getting in the car. And we know that because Kelsey's DNA was found on the tip of the car. It's believed that Kelsey was driving and Edwin was pointing it at her head while she was, and then he was using her seatbelt to choke her, and she would go in and out of consciousness. He was also SAing her, so he drove her to a different location, would choke her until she was unconscious, abuse her, then bring her back, do it again repeatedly. He was done doing whatever he wanted to do to her. He then choked her with the seatbelt until she was deceased, and then dropped off her body near the lake and drove her car back to the Macy's, and then walked back to his truck in the Target parking lot. He drives back to his house with his wife and his kid. Kelsey's DNA was found inside of his shorts because he SA'd her. Well, his wife's DNA was also found inside of his shorts. So he probably went home, slept with his wife. After he had done those disgusting actions to Kelsey, he then just slept with his wife and was pretending that nothing happened. The next day, like the idiot that he has proven to be, he goes back to the crime scene where her body is with a bottle of bleach. I guess he thought that he would clear off his DNA. Her shirt was actually pink, but when they found her body, it was white because of the amount of bleach that he poured on her. He was seen walking out of the woods by a couple and had a duffel bag with him, and he actually talked to the couple and seemed really nervous and said that he was a photographer and he was in the woods taking pictures. In court, these are hearings though, not in the actual trial. The defense was given 8 hours of security camera footage from Target, but they were trying to say that they never saw the footage of Edwin at Target, but it was literally just because they were lazy and they didn't want to go through the 8 hours and find the actual footage. July 23rd, 2008, to avoid trial, Edwin pled guilty on all charges, including capital murder, aggravated kidnapping, and aggravated suicide. Kelsey's family did speak out afterwards, and her dad said, "Today is not really a victory, but it is justice, and justice isn't always fair. If it was fair, we would get Kelsey back." September 16th, 2008 was his actual sentencing, and his attorney was trying to blame what he did on his rough childhood. And hear me out, don't get me wrong. I understand a rough childhood is awful. No one should ever have to go through things that they do when they're a kid. However, you cannot seriously look me in the eye and tell me that because of that, it's okay that you took someone else's life. Someone that you don't even know ruined so many people's lives because you had a tough childhood. No, it's not an excuse. It's stupid. July 7th, 2007, Kelsey's family started the Kelsey Smith Foundation, the mission being to honor Kelsey's life and to protect the youth and young adults. That is the story of Kelsey Smith. I have to go do my real job now. Let me know what you guys think and we will talk about it in the comments. Okay, love you.
It just goes to show you actually have no idea when you might be solving your own future murder. Honestly, girls, keep being chronically online because it could eventually in the future put your future killer behind bars. That's all I'm saying. It was 2019 in St. Louis, Missouri. Jennifer Rothwell was a beautiful 28-year-old woman. She was very intelligent, she loved Game of Thrones, and she loved going on family holidays. She really enjoyed the simple things in life, and she studied at the University of Missouri-Columbia in 2010. She'd met somebody also studying engineering like she was while she was studying there. This was her lab partner, Beau. They got on really well and were very attracted to each other from the get-go. In 2013, the pair graduated and the following year they got engaged. It was actually only 1 year later that they tied the knot, and everybody around them thought that they were like this ideal couple. They were childhood sweethearts. They were super happy together. By 2018, the pair had bought a lovely house in a nice neighborhood. It was honestly like the American dream. Then started talking about having a family together. For them, it seemed like kind of the next logical step. Okay, we're married, we're really happy together, we've got this lovely house, let's have some kids. But sadly for Jennifer, in December that year, she got diagnosed with endometriosis, which, if you don't know, can be an extremely debilitating condition. And it also means that trying for a baby can sometimes be difficult. It's really not the news that she wanted at all. The couple decided to keep carrying on trying and just seeing what happened, sort of trying not to put too much pressure on it, but just continuing to try. But nobody could have predicted what was around the corner. Beau reported his wife missing on the 12th of November. He rang police to tell them that she'd gone out to work that day and simply never returned home. He said the last time he saw her was when she left the house at 6:30. Officers immediately started making inquiries, and worryingly they found that Jennifer's car was abandoned with her phone inside, so it was pretty obvious to them that she'd not left of her own accord. She's not just abandoned her phone in her car. Police then started looking into who could have potentially wanted to harm Jennifer in some way. And pretty much like in any investigation, they did really look at the partner first and foremost. Sadly, it usually is your romantic partner who is the most likely to cause you harm. Concerningly, when they searched his car, they smell a strong smell of bleach. It had recently been cleaned, and I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I rarely clean my car, but when I do, I certainly wouldn't use bleach. They then turned the investigation to the pair's home and found that the smell was apparent there too. It stunk of bleach, and again, I don't know anybody who deep cleans their car with bleach and then also deep cleans their house at the same time. This just felt like a massive red flag. The timing just couldn't have been a coincidence. Investigators knew that they needed forensic teams to try and help confirm their suspicions. They were really feeling like Beau had something to do with this. Lo and behold, they found traces of blood and hair in the basement of the house. Now, this wasn't conclusive. This didn't necessarily mean that he'd done anything to anybody, let alone Jennifer, but they knew that if they sent this off and it was confirmed as Jennifer, this could be really damning. And as suspected, when the results came back, they were a positive match for Jennifer. So investigators were even more suspicious of Beau now, but still they didn't have a body, and people can, lose parts of their hair and their blood and not be dead, so they didn't actually have physical concrete evidence that she was dead. They decided to turn the attention to Jennifer's computer and see if there was any clues on that. One of her searches on Google really caught their eye. She'd recently looked up what to do if your husband is upset you are pregnant. This really caused alarm bells. Not only did they kind of have pretty much proof now that she was pregnant, which is when you're statistically most likely to be unalived by your romantic partner, but they had reason to believe he wasn't happy about it. This could be a motive for murder. Transpired that Jennifer was around 6 weeks pregnant when she vanished. She'd finally got her wish of having a baby, but it was never going to happen. Armed with this information, police interrogated Beau, and on November the 18th, realizing he pretty much couldn't run from the truth anymore, he led police to Jennifer's remains. He was charged with murder, and at his trial, he admitted to killing Jennifer but said that it was an accident, and honestly, the claims that he made will make your blood boil. He said that his wife had found out he was having an affair and they got into a bad argument. And he claimed that Jennifer told him that she cheated on him and that her unborn baby did not belong to him. He wasn't the dad of the baby. Now, bear in mind for a second that this is just his story and a way to basically make himself appear like a victim. He said that this made him angry and he then hit her with a mallet and didn't mean to kill her. I'm not sure how hitting somebody with a mallet is going to end up any other way. He admitted to driving for an hour with her in the car and burying her body in the woods, which obviously explained why he'd virtually had to coat the car in bleach to try and cover his tracks. And lo and behold, we could have guessed this part. A paternity test later disproved what he'd said about the paternity of the child, that it wasn't his. It was his. At his trial, another piece of evidence was presented, and this was a list of reasons for and against splitting up with his partner that he'd written down. Pros and cons of ending his marriage, basically. Pros included better sex life, more respect, and fresh start. And the cons included Jennifer and her family have to move, half my assets / money, and my family disappointment. Beau was thankfully found guilty and sentenced to life in prison.